Electrocast. This is the sound of your ride home with Dad after he caught you vaping. Awkward, isn't it? Most vapes contain seriously addictive levels of nicotine and disappointment. Know the real cost of vapes. Brought to you by the FDA.
Streaming December 12th on Peacock. Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie are back.
That's hot. Loves it.
For a show-stopping reunion that will prove putting on an opera is anything but simple.
We're really good at this.
One thing's for sure, they won't be upstaged.
Good to have you back. Come on, we've got a show to do.
Paris and Nicole, The Encore, a 3-part reunion special, streaming December 12th, only on Peacock.
Hold on to your butts.
We are changing the course of history as we see it. That is what Western demands.
Now this affects Iris. Iris, where are you?
What you feel only matters to you. I do not entertain hypotheticals. The world as it is vexing enough.
Iris, I have a tip for you.
Don't take drugs!
Or Whatever Movies with Wesley and Iris.
What up? Welcome to Or Whatever Movies. I'm your co-host, Iris. I'm here with my older brother,
Wesley, and today we're coming to you, Iris and I, from sunny Southern California.
as opposed to wherever juror number 2 is set.
Do you know what's in sunny Southern California? Disneyland. When you think of Disneyland, do you know what the only attraction is from opening day that remains at Disneyland? The Jungle Cruise. When you think of the Jungle Cruise, what do you think of?
Bad jokes?
Yes, why? Why? Where do bad jokes come from? That's right, the tour guide. Because I think the tour guide is the main attraction at the Jungle Cruise. And I'm going to argue for juror number 2, our tour guide is everything.
And by our tour guide, you mean Nicolas Hoult?
Nope, I mean Clint Eastwood of legend.
We have covered a number of Clint Eastwood films here at Or Whatever Movies, including The Mule. And then more recently, what was the other rando Clint Eastwood movie we just did?
Rando, you mean Cry Macho, the lowest earning movie in Warner Brothers history, and Clint Eastwood's final acting role. And I worried that we were ushering Clint Eastwood into the sunset and that Cry Macho would stand as his last film.
Nope. Instead, we got juror number 2. Nicolas Hoult is our tour guide through the narrative. And speaking of, we've also covered a number of Nicolas Hoult movies here at Or Whatever Movies, including The Menu and Renfield. This guy's busy. He's also coming out with Nosferatu, his second vampire movie.
Yep.
Because he's kind of vampiric. So anyway, man, you just love Clint Eastwood, dude.
You see, you know what? There's a resurgence of my affection for Clint Eastwood, but I was very upset with Cry Macho. I thought it was patently unrealistic and very frustrating that we should go that, oh, it's Clint Eastwood's final film, supposedly, and it's a Western. Oh my goodness. And boy, was I excited. And just the whole thing rang false to me. I've long had issues, as we discussed, with Clint Eastwood's casting choices, with kids, in particular, Gran Torino, a perfectly serviceable movie, ruined by those young actors. Sorry. And I had trepidation. So he talks about juror number 2, and everyone's saying it's his final film. No one of legitimacy has said that, but it was just assumed because the dude is 94 years old. And then juror number 2 came out, and I watched it, and I was very surprised and very grateful. Like The Father gives me back Anthony Hopkins. Juror number 2 gave me back Clint Eastwood. But in what role? I'm going to argue the tour guide role.
Don't you just mean relieved? Weren't you kind of bracing yourself for juror number 2?
Clint Eastwood, as we discussed, is maybe the last of the old studio system style directors who will take little scripts for their story and get it done effectively without inflating the budget, without relying on CG, on schedule every time. And I don't know that there are a lot of these small film champions like him anymore. I think finding it, developing it, steering us through the course of this movie is what makes it strong and extraordinary in a way.
Did you say incredible? Did you say extraordinary? Juror number 2?
I like this screenplay. I felt it was finely tuned. And Clint Eastwood delivering all of those angles is beyond what I thought at this point his capabilities were.
Honestly, like genuinely asking, is Clint Eastwood delivering on like a 100-picture deal that he made 50 years ago? Like, how is he still making these movies?
Well, he's long been with Warner Brothers, and they gave him Juror number 2, I think, as a concession because he's almost as old as Warner Brothers, the studio, is. And everybody was like, we'll see how it goes. Except not our stars, Nicolas Hoult and everybody else, who are so lavish in their praise of him. You're the only person who's like, Nicolas Hoult is our tour guide for this movie because he's fine. Toni Collette has been around a long time. She's fine. You always have a reliable anchor in J.K. Simmons who disappears most of the way through. Did you know that our young, unfortunate bar girl whose life is cut short tragically is Clint Eastwood's daughter?
The bar chick with the double birds?
Yeah.
That's Clint Eastwood's daughter?
Yep, Francesca.
No way. Kenny.
Do you know who Zoe Deutsch's mom is? Who plays Nicolas Holt's pregnant wife?
Who?
That's Leah Thompson, legendary Leah Thompson of Back to the Future fame.
No way.
Among other things. You know why you don't know that? Because nobody's talking about the actors in this movie. Everyone's talking about Clint Eastwood, who doesn't so much as show his face.
I'd argue this movie is about Clint Eastwood. These characters are caricature-ish. This screenplay, though you may admire it, seems kind of thin, a little stretched into a feature-length story. I felt aware of its artificialness, its filmness, and of Clint Eastwood's kind of heavy hand the entire time.
Do you mean that you weren't thrilled by the very obvious intercutting of closing statements between the defense and the prosecution?
That's one example of being very aware of the mechanics of this story.
Do you mean the verbatim delivery of some of the lines in the jury room taken directly from 12 Angry Men?
Oh, no. Not familiar enough with that movie to kind of recall it or make the parallel, but I was very aware of J.K. Simmons sitting in the box and being like, that juror is going to play a role in this story.
J.K. Simmons, who doesn't speak for 40 minutes after appearing on screen, literally.
Yeah, when he pipes up, I was reminded of the Q&A that I saw with Denzel Washington for Gladiator 2, when the filmmakers were talking about Ridley Scott's process of like shooting with 20 cameras at a time, covering a scene from all angles at all times, and Denzel Washington being like, yeah, it's really interesting. I haven't been an extra for 40 years. That's like J.K. Simmons is just sitting there in the box like the entire time.
Yeah.
I'm very aware of him talking with Toni Collette in this very forced way at the top of the staircase with like no background actors in the background of this giant city hall type building.
Yeah. Speaking very loud in an echoey stairwell, yeah.
Yeah, about confidential case information. He just doesn't care.
Who doesn't? Clint Eastwood doesn't care?
He just doesn't care. He's not crafting this movie.
The movie is not his necessarily to craft. The Jungle Cruise is all in place. All you need is for the guy to get you through it and make what is otherwise fairly routine clever and fun and at least entertaining. I do believe that Clint Eastwood doesn't have the deftest hand with the delivery, with the performances. Now, he is loved and everyone says he's an actor's director, but unlike Ridley Scott, he uses, I think, single camera setups, maybe double camera setups in a lot of the stuff, but he certainly rarely does above one take. Everyone is, he's so laid back. He's so chill. J.K. Simmons talked about 8-hour days on set, which means 9 hours for the crew. And then you work, quote, almost like normal people and then go home because Clint Eastwood needs to get home in time for dinner or wherever he's staying in Georgia. And a lot of the times the craft, the delivery, what comes through to us in the audience suffers from a single take. But he's bringing it in under budget and on schedule. And that's why Clint Eastwood as an art form hasn't been, to me, relevant in decades. But he found and championed and delivered a script that I found very admirable and that I was relieved wasn't his swan song in Cry Macho, that I got something better. You can't tell me that Juror number 2 as a movie, as a plot, as a premise was sloppily delivered.
Delivered is an interesting word, maybe an operative term in this discussion, because especially using your Jungle Cruise analogy, you're kind of saying, like, as long as the tour guide gets us back in one piece, there's a dock on the right and a dock on the left. You know what you call that, a paradox?
Hey, it's a spoiler. Jeez. People pay out the nose for that joke.
Then he's kind of done his job. But I think that's a pretty low bar to hold a Oscar-winning director and producer and filmmaker to. And it's a little bit of a low bar to hold this cast to. I would imagine that in any gaps that Clint Eastwood might leave, whether due to his age or his shooting style, that someone would care enough about Juror number 2, the film, to fill those in. Nicholas Hoult's young and full of energy and verve. Doesn't he want this to be his leading man vehicle? What a great opportunity for him to play a leading man part in a Clint Eastwood film. I mean, Bradley Cooper certainly benefited from that. Did they simply not have that latitude? Or were they happy to kind of let Clint Eastwood phone it in?
Have you been to Musso and Frank Grill, one of the oldest restaurants in Los Angeles?
Yeah, it's an institution.
Is it an institution? It's like 100 years old, right? Why? What do they got? Boy, do they have like a good steak and baked potato, and their Caesar salads, let me tell you, real anchovies swimming around in there. And that's kind of it, man. They've been around for a long time, but they're not changing it up. They're not playing jazz. It's not fusion. Nicholas Hoult wouldn't have any special requests on that menu. You just have to get what they give. But it's reliable and an institution, like Clint Eastwood. What do you want Nicholas Hoult to do? He's just happy to be there, said, and I quote, if Clint Eastwood had called and said, hey, I need you to scrub my toilets, I would have been there.
I could see how any of these people would show up for him, and I get it, but are they being utilized for the power that they can actually bring? You don't think that Kiefer Sutherland was kind of a waste in his role?
Absolutely useless. However, he campaigned. He called Clint Eastwood and said, I will do whatever you want to be in your movie. And Clint Eastwood was like, okay, and put him to do whatever he wanted with him, which is basically nothing.
I mean, basically, all Clint Eastwood needed to do with the Kiefer Sutherland, Larry Lasker role was cast someone who doesn't look completely diminutive next to the giant galoot that is Nicholas Hoult.
Yeah.
How tall is he?
He's over 6'2", but he's not like Barron Trump or anything. He is very tall. You know who else was very tall? Clint Eastwood at least 6'3". That's like Liam Neeson level tall for imposing dudes. Clint Eastwood has since shrunk way down, who looks equally dwarfed by Nicholas Hoult. But Kiefer Sutherland was an action star, both on the silver and the small screen. What do you want?
I'm not saying that Kiefer Sutherland doesn't hold his own in scenes with Nicholas Hoult. I'm just saying Clint Eastwood didn't have to give himself the framing challenge that he did by casting the two of them in those roles. Now, J.K. Simmons and Nicholas Hoult, they're a little bit more equally matched. These are just very practical considerations that don't take a lot of time or place an unnecessary burden on the production if you're just thinking about it. Just think about it.
See, and I've got my back up against the door, and Iris is rattling the door handle of this closet of horrors and implausibilities and just boring kind of deliveries of Juror number 2. So fine, I'm going to step out of the way. I'm going to let you open the door. And what do you got? What's your problem? I can give you one of my problems.
Leading question, if I've ever heard one. Go.
Why is it necessary for the defendant to be present all the time? Wasn't he, I swear to God, wasn't that dude present for jury selection? Did they truck that dude out in chains to the site where the jurors examined the scene of the crime? Why was he there? That was very silly.
I'm not up on the finer details of the voir dire process, but I can see how, now I'm going in defensive mode, I can see how, the defendant might have an opinion about his jurors, might want to weigh in with his counsel about who stays and who goes. Sure. What else does he have to do?
Well, yeah, true. We're also examining his character. Was it not annoying that both the counsel very conveniently had their little exposition bar every single day after court?
Yeah, did neither of them have any life?
Nothing. No life.
To go back to?
Toni Collette, she was focused and determined. Have faith. She's running for district attorney. She's got her mind focused on other things.
even though she has nothing else better to do or no one else better to go to after work, we at least have a fuller picture of her motivation, right? She's got political aspirations, and that gives her stakes for winning this case. That drives her to win this case, which makes her choice to come after Nicolas Hoult at the end that much more weighty. Because we see what Toni Collette's character stands to lose by bringing justice to Nicolas Hoult's Justin Kemp character. So that was a nice touch.
Yes, and I think that was character information in that they were informed enough so that they had plausible reasons for doing all the stuff they did. Were they a little bit caricaturish as we go down the line to the less prominent characters? Absolutely. I was cringing and I was waiting for the jury to be stereotypical, like the Asian lady is the smart lady and the guy is all fired up about the Boys and Girls Club and stuff. And I was like, oh man, there's much opportunity for the replacement juror to be like the Karen house mom or whatever. And I was like, ooh.
Man.
They each had their own motivations, but that got stronger for the more serious characters.
Well, and we spend a lot of time with their motivations in the deliberation room. We spend a lot of time with them in a deadlock. How do they suddenly all come to a unanimous guilty decision? Did the filmmakers omit a scene, or did I miss something?
Way to eat its heat. You're listening to an app at PC Game Pass. Want new games on day one like Indiana Jones and the Great Circle? How about living out your Sims life with EA Play? We're talking high quality PC games all for one low monthly price. We got you. Learn more at xbox.com/PC Game Pass or click the banner. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle available December 9th, 2024. Game catalog varies by region and over time. Okay, that's the ad. You can go back to doing whatever you were doing now.
This episode is brought to you by Etsy.
Oh.
Hear that?
Okay. Thank you.
Etsy knows these aren't the sounds of holiday gifting. Well, not the ones you're hoping for. You want squeals of delight. Happy tears.
How did you?
And spontaneously written songs of joy.
I am so happy. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, the song needs a bit of work, but anyway, to get those reactions, make sure everyone on your list feels heard with handmade, handpicked, and designed gifts from small shops on Etsy. Gifts like personalized jewelry, custom artwork, cozy style items, vintage pieces, and home decor to celebrate all of your favorite people and their specific kind of special. For original gifts that say, I get you, Etsy has it.
All of a sudden we came to it, but it was in the way this movie was handled where we didn't need to see every single thing that happened. But I agree, we did get into a little bit of a slump at one point where we're sort of picking at the evidence and not making any progress. It's right after J.K. Simmons leaves. Toni Collette isn't making any progress in terms of finding anything out about the cars. It's almost a montage of her visiting different people, and the jurors, most of them, cannot be convinced to change their vote. They were all deadlocked, and I was like, we need lightning here. And then she finds the car, kind of, and Kiefer tells Nicolas Hoult that in order for this to be resolved, you need a verdict. And I think that was motivating in him changing his mind, who, as I understand it at that point, was the last holdout for against a unanimous jury bringing in a guilty verdict.
So I guess more importantly, we don't necessarily see Nicolas Hoult's turn. Yes, he has that conversation with Kiefer Sutherland, but this is the decision that he's been struggling with from the very beginning. So how does Justin Kemp change his mind? When does he decide, okay, I'm just going to let him burn?
Who the hell is Justin Kemp?
Nicolas Hoult's character. When does he decide to let the defendant, Mr. Scythe, a decidedly evilly kind of name, Mr. Scythe.
Yeah, Mr. Scythe, he's the Scythe of the Grim Reaper, right? Additionally, Justin, the etymology of that name is justice or truth. Come on.
There's probably some Kemp philosophy reference there, too.
Toni Collette is faith. Come on.
You love the heavy-handedness of this.
No, I'm grateful. It was a sigh of relief. I appreciated it. I don't know why he decided to change. I think that it was inevitable, and I also think it was a red herring. Wait, he changed his vote? Oh my goodness, knowing that it really wasn't going to hold any weight. I think we were an hour into the movie at that point when they decided to bring him in guilty, and I was like, nah, that's not the way this movie is going to wrap up. So I was kind of okay with it, but we didn't see everything. And that delivery is kind of what I appreciate appreciated the most. If I can point to anything that is deliberately Clint Eastwood's hand as opposed to the screenplay saving him or solid actors saving him, it was the unveiling of this information. Because I was concerned, because I was unsure about the stability of this movie. I'm not sure what's happening. The pregnant wife says, "You've been through a lot for me." And I was like, what? That was a weird line. What does that mean? Because I was waiting for the younger actors to be unrealistic in a Clint Eastwood movie. Because she miscarried, which we didn't get until later on. Why was he in the bar? If he's it's because he had the thing where he lost his twins. Why was Justin a normal dude? A year after this horrific crash, which changed his life, he totally forgot about it. There was some convenience. Why didn't Asian juror, sorry, I don't know anybody's name.
Third-year med student?
Yeah, why didn't Asian juror speak up and say, look, I may not be a doctor, but let us bring in, My Cousin Vinny style, someone qualified to say that she died from blunt force trauma to the back of the head. How did the car damage the back of her head? When the guy who did the autopsy said that it was improbable, not likely, that head trauma she would have suffered as a result of the fall. She said that the two clavicles were cleanly broken, being struck from behind. She could have said, as I see it, as a medical professional, soon to be a doctor, these wounds are inconsistent with the evidence given. Why wouldn't she say anything?
Juror number 2, a commentary on the American justice system and inherent American laziness.
The movie does spell out a lot for us. It unfolds it rather deliberately, but it also does trust us to figure some stuff out, which I did, which were all questions up front, and I thought were lapses in judgment on Clint Eastwood's part. But it really does come around and is tightly constructed, so much so that as much as I had an issue with the closing shot, I'm not sure that there could be a satisfactory resolve at all. The whole point is that this movie keeps you talking about it and thinking about it, which I really haven't stopped doing, which is a good thing.
And that's perhaps where juror number 2 succeeds. I would argue it doesn't really have anything to do with Clint Eastwood other than maybe the fact that his cachet is what allowed it to come to the screens for us to see this story in action. Juror number 2 succeeds in that it prompts a question that I think people will answer in lots of different ways. Is justice served? What is justice in this very complicated situation? But I also wonder, what is the filmmaker's opinion? Are we intended to want to see Justin Kemp come to justice for, something he didn't, intend to do, but something that he ultimately did? I think that Justin Kemp, being the kind of person he is, would want justice to be served or would want to kind of pay for what he did, even if it was unintentional. And so I think ultimately, to answer my own question, yes, it is served. And in that sense, it's, an honorable story to tell.
It's in the name, Justin. It's in your name to want to do the right thing. But he's human. Everybody's fallible. And the question is real. One that isn't served by a simple answer. Because the character development, in my humble opinion, for the major characters was so developed, I could absolutely see why they would make those decisions. As far as the moral implications of the trial and the verdict go, think about Zoe Deutsch, who plays Nicolas Hoult's wife, whose name is what?
Alison Krausen?
Allison, from her perspective, absolutely does not deserve to have her husband and the father of her child taken away for a crime that was an accident, based on the idea that he would go to jail by default because of his drinking history and recovery. I was really worried we were driving towards this reveal that he actually did down that shot and drive, because he's all emotionally broken up and we don't know why. And he's rubbing his eyes when we see the initial impact, on Old Town Road or whatever the hell. And
Old Quarry Road?
If he had taken the
Back Harlow Road?
That is right where they found the body from Stand By Me. Also with Kiefer Sutherland, just looking to take a couple steelhead out of the river, and look what we found. Do you not think that if Justin, the precariousness of his character's balance is such that if he had taken that drink, you would have felt differently about what his moral responsibility was?
Juror number 2 hinges on one shot.
Yeah, maybe.
Shots.
Right. But also,
everybody.
And there was a lot of weight and strength in not being sure. Maybe I didn't hit a deer, but maybe you did. You don't know for sure. Maybe it was the worst coincidence ever until we see that shot again where he confirms that What's-His-Nuts stopped his car, turned around and drove back past Justin. So there's no way he could have killed her.
Mm-hmm. That was interesting new information and meted out very well.
Right, exactly. Those revelations, they were measured and they were appropriate in a way that I found admirable in terms of storytelling, where everything else seemed to be conveniently driving to the large mystery of whether or not she was actually murdered. We were given pieces of information at a relatively late stage that did influence the story. Likewise, I do believe that based on the testimonies of everyone involved, we got a Rashomon style of variance in the retelling. They weren't recreations, but the flashbacks were misleading because of unreliable narrators. You got this sense that all the stories told about their altercation at the bar were on screen, visually very different.
Yeah, it was very Rashomon in that sense. In one, she gives him the double bird. In the other, she's a little less aggressive.
And for how he's perceived, at one point he's smashing glasses with his fist and grabbing her by the throat. And it doesn't look good for him.
So what I'm hearing here is that a simple story told simply, provided it poses some more complicated questions, can be highly effective, powerful even. Juror number 2 in this way really succeeds. But this is also theatrical filmmaking in 2024. I mean, this movie is spectacleless. There probably isn't a CGI shot in the whole thing.
No, I agree.
You know, why does this deserve to be a film?
This is Grandma's potatoes and eggs. In my adulthood, I realized there was nothing extraordinary about Grandma's potatoes and eggs, but long after she's gone, and 40 years later in my family, make it with some degree of regularity.
Yeah, I recommend loads of pepper.
Right? Because one time, in her heavy-handedness, Grandma put too much pepper on it. And ever since then, I've been addicted to black pepper. J.K. Simmons disappears. Did you not expect he would resurface? As a detective, with all his awareness, spotting Nicolas Hoult's car, he never once considered that the match of the vehicles makes Justin a suspect?
It's intended to be obvious for us, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it would be so obvious to everyone else. I mean, if anyone should have known, it was Toni Collette standing in front of the wedding photo of Justin and Allison.
Like I said, all convenience to get us to a point in the movie where you're like, what's gonna happen? But I can't fault this movie for what it is. I was secure in the motivations of the characters because at a base level, the girl didn't deserve to die. Someone's got to go to jail, Ben. And Faith had a lot to lose. She was elected district attorney. Nicolas Hoult did have an accident and would have gone to jail because of his past when he is a changed dude. Homeboy, as bad as he was because of his past, didn't deserve to go to jail for life for a murder he didn't commit. It was all based on perception and ultimately boils down to, you're right, the fallibility of the legal system and the administration of justice based on human fallibility and the perception, which I think is what this movie was about. Different people of different moral standings will take those stances and there will be much discussion. I'm struggling with it because while I think it's right that that girl find some justice, that it's probable. Faith showed up on Justin's doorstep with such a look of grim determination. It's like that dude's going down and she's going to wreck his family. But really, what other outcome could there possibly be? It's not maybe completely right, but it rights too many wrongs to be ignored.
Justice is complicated. It's a different story than other courtroom drama thrillers we've seen. It's not Anatomy of the Fall complicated, where we really, as an audience, don't know what happened. And it's not My Cousin Vinny either, where our protagonists are clearly not guilty. But it is My Cousin Vinny in the sense that it doesn't work.
No, there's absolutely no way. What you did is you alienated
And therefore,
87%. You cannot give juror number 2 a boring. That's morally
boring.
reprehensible. You can't.
As a producer, as a multimedia producer, I often got scripts, and it was especially the animated ones where I would turn back to the writer and I would say, why does this need to be an animated film? Animation is expensive, it's labor intensive, and the story needs to justify the format. And I feel like this story justifies its format as a feature film.
Being not at all expensive or labor intensive as a Clint Eastwood film.
But does it need to be a film? Could it have been just as effective in posing its complicated judicial questions in a novella? In a podcast, man, have you ever heard of Scam Town? Seems like an episode of Scam Town where people got away with murder. Exactly. I'm just saying, I don't know that this justifies the time and resources that Warner Brothers and these actors put into this. I'm glad, too, that Clint Eastwood's still around. But is juror number 2 worth any of our time, BORING? And your final rating is?
Less than 2 hours it costs. How much would it have taken for a novella even, or a short story? Clint Eastwood doesn't have much time left. I think he did it in the best way that he knows how when the story came across his desk. You do you, 94-year-old Clint Eastwood. Pat you on your bony little butt.
Yeah. I'm going to take that as a totally.
No, it's not a totally. Come on. I was so relieved and thankful because you know how many people make it to 94? Do you know how many people are still making films at 94 that I don't hate? I hate films of people a third of his age. And I was so relieved that I didn't hate this movie and that it gave me food for thought. I cling to juror number 2 like a life preserver in the stormy sea of Warner Brothers and modern cinema from the SS Clint Eastwood. I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it. All right rating.
I changed my tune, right? I talked about some stuff that worked in juror number 2.
I guess so. But what we do echoes in eternity. That's from Gladiator. And you're going on record with a guilty verdict, and that's wrong.
We love you all, and especially hashtag 94-year-old Clint Eastwood. And we love you, our audience. We want to know what you think about juror number 2, so let us know. 818-835-0473 or whatevermovies at gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Welcome to Entrepreneurs Exposed, where we dive into the stories of visionary entrepreneurs revolutionizing the workforce. Our ongoing mission is to showcase founders and creators doing amazing things in business and beyond. If you're a founder, CEO, tech enthusiast, or someone generally interested in startup land, join me, Adam Levinter, as I dive into what makes an entrepreneur an entrepreneur. Find us wherever you get your podcasts.
Electricast. Dreaming of the perfect event or longing for a clutter-free space? I'm Stephanie with I'm with Steph, where your vision becomes a reality. From magical weddings to transformative home organizing, we bring you expertise and passion to every project. Whether you're planning a grand celebration or seeking peace through organization, we tailor our services to meet your unique needs. I'm with Steph. To explore our services and connect with me directly, visit I'mWithSteph.com. Mention Electricast for a 20% discount. Electricast.